of the headlines from this is that Israel, or at least this Prime Minister, is not interested right now in negotiations.
I think he basically rejected everything that America's allies, friends, and detractors have been proposing in recent weeks. I think you could say, Sami, that finally, after 4 months of wobbling in his tone, not in his position, because there's nothing new that's been said today, but clearly in terms of tone, I think the Israeli Prime Minister have finally found his voice, and his voice, of course, is obnoxious, abrasive, and confident. This was not the case the past few months. Now, this is the wartime leader speaking, and he's speaking in terms that have absolutely nothing to do with negotiations. He is talking about heroism, he's talking about victory, about prevailing, and clearly he's talking about a decisive defeat, eliminating Hamas, and so on and so forth. Now, to convince his audience, and his audience is the Israeli public, whose eyes today are directed towards Tel Aviv, where a good number of segment of the Israeli public is demonstrating with the families of the captives. And he said something very important. He said it before, but once again, he's saying it with a new tone. He's saying, you are attacking me with the requests and the demands of the families of the captives' requests and demands. I am responding to you with the calls and the demands of the soldiers who died in this war and their families and their lives that should not be or should not have gone for nothing. I'm talking to you about the thousands of soldiers who were injured, and they couldn't have been injured for nothing. So he's basically juxtapositioning two segments of the Israeli society, those who fought and those who were held captives. He's also juxtapositioning his own coalition of 64 members of the 120 Israeli parliament, which he's holding on to dearly. In as far as he's concerned, the American position is not important. International attempts at dictating to Israel what it should and how it should recognize a Palestinian state is not acceptable. The Netanyahu that's abrasive, confident, and obnoxious is claiming that America, that came to his aid, America that allowed him to be a prime minister where he is today and to claim to be a wartime leader, America should not be listened to. Israel will take the money, it will take the arms, but it rejects the advice. Believe it or not, the leader of this little, whatever you want to call it, country, thinks in terms of equality with the United States. He says, I don't interfere in your internal affairs, don't interfere in ours.
Is another way of looking at this that this is a man who's feeling the heat from some of the domestic pressure now as we see those protests in places like Tel Aviv grow?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This Netanyahu, once again, I need to underline these things because this is the Netanyahu that we've known over the years, the past 25, 30 years. This is the obnoxious, abrasive, confident Netanyahu that will not accept diktats from the street, from the opposition. And the last question that he posed to the press, which I think it went, when none of us understood what he's talking about, I think he's basically trying to build up some conspiracy theory that there are invisible hands that are trying to destabilize his government. I'm not sure if he's going to start signaling anyone in the United States or elsewhere, but clearly there are now increasing voices, even in the United States, that wants him removed, that want to see a new elections in Israel. Because for a lot of people, especially in this region, in the Middle East, that think the main obstacle to peace is Netanyahu, not Haniya. It's Likud that's governing in Israel, not Hamas. It's Israel, not Gaza. This is the obstacle to peace.
All right, thanks so much, Marwan Bishara. Well, while Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was speaking, two separate protests have been taking place in Tel Aviv. One group is calling for him to step down. The other is demanding the release of all captives being held in Gaza. Let's go live now to Hamda Salhoud. She joins us from Tel Aviv. And I understand, Hamda, as he was speaking, there were some scuffles going on. Tell us what was happening there.
As you can see behind me, the anti-government demonstration in full force. This is the first time since the beginning of the war that the anti-government protest movement has come out in full force like this. You can see police mounted on horseback here and these trucks that have been placed by Israeli police. And that's in order to prevent the demonstrators from going all the way down this road to our left here and blocking the Ayalon highway. That's something that the anti-government protest movement was doing constantly in the year of 2023 leading up to the war. Now, simultaneously, just across the street, you have a rally to bring back the captives. At some point this evening, those two demonstrations will come together into one massive protest against the Israeli government's policy that has seen not bringing back the captives. The Israeli Prime Minister speaking tonight, addressing the issue. But when you talk to Israelis here in this crowd, they'll tell you that time has simply run out. 134 days have gone by, and the family members have not seen their loved ones. So on top of that protest, you have anti-government demonstrations here in Tel Aviv, Israelis showing up in the thousands. Sammy?
All right, thanks so much. Hamda Salhoud there. Well, Menachem Klein is